All right, so stop me if you heard this before. Artemis 1 had leak issues. Artemis 2, guess what? We have leak issues. But this is not, I would say it's not the end of the world, because this is the reason they do the wet dress rehearsal, to see if there's issues. They did have leaks, and they also had other issues which came out in a press conference today. The leaks were one thing, but there were some communication issues, other things. So basically what it boils down to is they're going to punt this to the second launch window, which honestly I kind of suspected would be the case, but we got confirmation today, and let's hear from NASA about what the plan is going forward.
We try to test like we fly, but this interface is a very complex interface, and when you're dealing with hydrogen, it's a small molecule, it's highly energetic, and we like it for that reason, and we do the best we can. And actually this one caught us off guard, and the initial things that we were seeing, and the technical team felt like we either had some sort of misalignment or some sort of deformation or debris on the seal.
So I thought that was fascinating. They had this issue with Artemis 1, which was unmanned. Artemis 2 is manned. There's going to be a crew on board, so there's going to be a much higher safety protocol. But I thought this was interesting because, they had this issue with the first one. They're having it again. But I thought they made a good point. This is a giant bomb that they're basically filling full of hydrogen, and you're putting humans on board. So you don't want to take any chances, Alex. And in space flight, I think sometimes from the outside looking in, people go, what's the deal? What's going on? This is kind of the process, right? You test the thing. If it doesn't work, we're going to make sure everything's right, and we'll just wait until we have everything perfect. So I thought that was interesting, but not totally unexpected in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think you were supposed to go down there. So you're still slated. Are you going to go back down? Are you going down there in March?
Well, now my opportunity to go is increasing because we had the Super Bowl and the Winter Olympics this weekend, so it was going to be like probably not, but maybe. I was like, but now I think the opportunity to go down could increase. But this is the problem with trying to plan a trip to go cover this, Alex. You don't know. There's a window. There's no guarantee it goes off. And so now we're in that second launch window. And if you guys remember the first time with Artemis 1, when they had this delay, they had to roll the whole rocket back to the launch assembly and recharge the batteries and check things. Well, the good thing this go around, they learned, and they built this, I don't know if they built it, but they upgraded it. I don't know how I would frame that, James. Whatever they did, they basically can leave it out there for 2 launch windows now without having to roll it back. But they did say, if this doesn't happen in the March one, they will have to roll it back and then recharge the batteries basically in the system. Is that correct, James? You listened to the whole press conference today.
I did listen to the whole news conference. That is correct. They've done something to the batteries. There are batteries for science experiments on board. Yeah. There are batteries for the safety systems on board. They did some sort of change so that they don't have to take it in and out every month, because it's a very slow trip back to the vehicle assembly building, back to the pad. So we get about 2 months out of every recharge.
Yeah.
Unless there's a problem. So they're hoping to fix this hydrogen leak on the pad, but they could roll back if it's more complicated of a repair than they initially thought.
Yeah, and I thought from that soundbite we had, he said something about a seal. When you have a leak, there's usually a seal. And I'm just theorizing, but I'm curious if the cold weather had to play with this, because those are rubber seals, and this is what happened with the Challenger, right? Those things got brittle, and it caused a leak to form there. And so you wonder if there's something with the cold weather there. So they're going to retest that and figure it out. And if it is a seal that's has to be replaced, then I would assume they're going to have to roll it back. But the good news is they have time to do that. They can do some work on the launch pad before they do that. But so everybody out here was getting excited for this weekend. We can wait. It's going to be March now. The third launch window is in April, right, James?
Yes, and actually this was a question today.
Yeah.
Was NASA has announced launch opportunities, which were the beginning of February, the beginning of March, the beginning of April, And they were asked today, do you have launch opportunities after that? And essentially, it's 5 or 6 days every month, and they've given us the dates through April.
Yeah, so it'll all be based on the lunar cycle. So it's why it's every 30 days. You basically have a launch window. But then you start getting into more weather issues the later we get out of winter weather, and we start worrying about lightning and thunderstorms, which down there, as you know, Alex, that seems to always delay even SpaceX launches down there.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, like you said, Brad, it's a bomb. So you have astronauts sitting on top of a bomb. You can't cut the fuse once you start to light it. So you've got to make sure all of those issues are fixed, because there's people's lives at risk. There's millions, if not billions, of dollars of technology on board that could get destroyed. And so, you just have to take it slow when it comes to this. It's exciting. I looked into the mission. So they're supposed to photograph the dark side of the moon and
isn't that exciting?
Geology and
that is so cool.
Space weather. That's so. They're going to have like space weather. The Space Weather Prediction Center is going to be like 24/7 with them. I mean, this is really cool stuff that'll come out of this.
Yeah, the dark side of the moon stuff is pretty cool, because we've never really kind of explored that part. And because they're making this giant orbit on the dark side, this will technically be the farthest that man has ever traveled from Earth in a spacecraft. So even during the Apollo missions, they never went this far out, because they stayed roughly closer to the to the moon, and they stayed on the sunny side. They didn't go on the dark side. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool things and experiments. You made a good point about space weather. We've had a very active solar cycle, and James and I actually talked a lot about this. Like, space weather really impacts astronauts a lot. They would have to take precautions on the launch, and from radiation, they would have to protect themselves if there's a giant solar flare when this mission is going on.
Yeah, and I mean, so those are things you just don't think about. And the sun actively has a major role, especially active sun cycle. That has a major impact on Earth's weather. You don't think about it, but I mean, it does. It's our number one source of heating, and that causes our, heating differences on the Earth, which causes pressure differences, winds, all of that. So weather's driven by our sun, and when the sun's in an active solar cycle, we need to be able to study that. So it'll be interesting to see what data they collect with, being on that side of the moon.
And during that last solar storm, Brad, do you remember the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center in their video update was saying, we're talking to NASA, we're talking to the astronauts aboard the International Space Station, and we're even monitoring Artemis, which is out on the pad. If they had been up in space, that would have been a whole nother moving target for them to have to track.
Yeah, well, people don't realize when there's one of those giant solar flares, there's actually a shielded room or compartment, I would call it, in the space station, where astronauts will actually go seek shelter until that flare passes the space station, because there's that much radiation that passes them. So this is a huge deal. We haven't really had an active solar cycle like this when we've had manned space flight going on, because remember, that's 11-year cycle for the sun. The last one was the active cycle really wasn't very active. It felt like a minimum. So you think about it, it's really been like 24 years since we've had a really active solar cycle. That's why we've seen so many aurora borealis sightings here in the south, which is the other reason I think people are like, does this happen all the time? It kind of did, but it happened a long time ago. We didn't have smartphones and social media that we could all kind of enjoy it. So it is going to be interesting. I'm really excited for this now. I'm actually somewhat glad it got moved to the second launch window. I know James is too, because it gives us more time to cover it and talk about it. We've just been slammed with winter weather, so now we can kind of enjoy the space stuff. James, anything else that's stuck with you today from the press conference?
I wish I had a picture of it, but launch director Charlie Blackwell Thompson, Google it. She had earrings that were spectacular. They were the SLS rocket. I don't know where she got them. Maybe they're one of a kind.
That's a true space geek when you know that. I mean, that's what I love about those guys and those gals. They are great because they are all into it. So we'll obviously be talking more about this. We'll talk more about our cold rain and brief snow chance again tomorrow, but stick around. We got more news coming up.